So this how-to video is going to cover how to create an online assessment based off a test that you already have. So I'll show you how to create the item types and the questions and how to send this out to your students. So the first part that we're going to go to on the left-hand side when you're in IO is going to be testing, and you're going to go to create test. For you, if this is going to be a common assessment, you will choose site test. But if this is something that you are going to only use for your classroom yourself, you can use teacher test. The online part, you need to create some sort of standard. You can say this doesn't address any standards, but you need to select one of these. So I'm just going to leave it at Common Core Standard for the example. I'll say that this is ELA. The 8th grade is going to be the grade that I'm going to target. I'll put DOI example. So this will be a test for the Declaration of Independence that I would have given to my students when I was teaching. So I will make this an online only test. And instead of choosing from an item bank, because I'm going to create a test key basically, I'm going to create test key for this particular example for my previous made test. So up here on how many questions you have, I'm going to say I have 5 for this particular one. And I'm going to generate that, so it will create 5 questions for me, as you see down here when I hit generate. Let's say questions 4 and 5 are true-false questions. I will select them on this side over here. I'll go back up to test key criteria, and I will change that to true-false. And I'll hit apply to selected. So now my students have a multiple choice option with A through D and true-false questions here. Now some people like using a scaled response. So you can do a scaled response from 0 to 10. Or you can use FGHJK for other multiple choice question types. So this is pretty much my test. It's 5 questions. Again, 3 multiple choice, 2 true false. So I will save this test. I'll make sure that this area is all correct. And then I will hit finish. Oh, it will not let you move on until you select the correct answers. For this example, I'll just say all C is correct. And I'll do true, false here. And now I'll hit finish. Now it will let me move on to the next step. So this is the Manage Test Control Panel. It will just make sure that everything is correct here. I have a number of 5 questions. My test level is 8th grade. It says that right now I don't have a testing date because I need to finalize it. So I will finalize this. I can upload a PDF if I wanted to, so I can put my test on here. So I'll select Upload PDF. So I can select the booklet for my students. So I'll select the actual test here, my Declaration of Independence. I will hit select, upload booklet. And what this will do is it'll actually show this resource to my students when they're taking it online. And I'll show you what that looks like. All right, okay, here, a booklet has been uploaded for this version, good. And I will exit out. So now I have everything ready to go. I will finalize this test. Excellent. So what I will do next is I will schedule this test for when it's going to be given online. So I will schedule the test by hitting the green icon here. I will say that this testing window is test window 1. And I'll give it a date on when I want it to begin and when I want it to end. And I'll make sure that this is online only. What will pop up is if you are using Student Portal, do I want my students to see this test after the window closes and their scores? I'll say yes because I typically would want that. So this test will not show up until 12/1 when the testing window has closed, and I will show scores, responses, and test questions to my students. If I'm giving the online test, this is the part that you want to pay attention to. If I'm going to give this test and I want my students to only take this test when they're in my classroom, I will do the proctored online testing. And this is important because your students will only get this test if they have the session ID for this particular test. If you want your students to be able to take this test whenever, so at will, you can select students, and then they can get this test whenever they want. So I'm going to use the proctored online testing because I only want my students to use this when I'm in the classroom with them. And I will hit save. So I'm going to preview this test to see what it looks like, just to make sure I have everything ready to go. This is what your students will see. So here on the left-hand side is the PDF that I uploaded. On the right-hand side are the questions that my students will be asked. So this is the multiple choice. So on the left-hand side, you can have your questions being asked, and the students can go over here on the right-hand side and select their options. And then when they're done, they submit it. And this is what it looks like. And they submit their test. So now if you want to give this test online and you want to actually use this for, say, first period, I will go to testing on the left-hand side. I will scroll down to where it says administer online test. And I'll find the actual test that I made. So here's my test, a DOI example. So I'm going to administer this test. I'll select OK. This will allow my students 30 minutes of start time to actually enter in the session ID. I don't want 30 minutes because that's halfway through my class. So let's say 10 minutes, just in case I have someone come in late, and I'll start the session. Once I do that, it's going to generate the session ID, which your students will use to log into the test. So this right here is what you're going to write on your board. You'll want to make sure that your students can see this, that they write it down. And what's nice about this is that your students actually get the experience of taking the online CASP test, and it kind of sets them up on how to use the session ID and where to plug it in. So here this part is, and you're probably wondering how your students are going to be able to log in. I'm going to show you how your students log in next. So to get your students to the IO online assessment page, you want to send them this URL right here. It's going to be the edems.com sign-in page. This is how you have signed in as well. On the right-hand side, they're going to select online testing for students. And what it's going to ask for is the session ID that you were given. And I believe capitalization is important for this. And then they are going to, they put the session ID here. And they're going to put their student ID here. So their 1, 2, 3 number. I'm just going to show you how quickly this works. So then it tells the students who they're going to sign in as. And then they can verify, and it'll take them right to the test after they verify their account. So that's how your students will actually log in. Again, if you have any questions about this, please email me or call me, and I will help you as much as I can. Have a good day. Bye-bye.